Hey kiddos, I miss you guys. Hope everybody's doing well. I hope the first day of remote learning went okay. Um, I'm here in my living room. My wife's upstairs, so I've got a couple minutes to record this. So we got an old school buzzer beater here. Which continent has the highest fertility rates? Africa, Asia, South America, North America, Europe. And I hope you remember in high fertility rates, we should associate with less developed countries. And so as we go down through the list, the region with the most least developed countries would be Africa, which would be our correct answer. Second, this goes back to Unit 1, old school, so get the cobwebs out of your brains. The distance north and south of the equator is the latitude is the answer. And I always remembered it like latitude, like you're climbing a ladder. They're the lines that go across like they might be rungs on a ladder as you climb up or down the map. All right. I trust all of you, every single one of you, did the throwback yesterday, or did the notes yesterday, excuse me. And really, it was about the origins of agriculture. And the essential kind of distinction that we made was the differences between commercial and subsistence farming. And so I just created kind of a T-chart for us here. Commercial farming is found in more developed countries. Obviously has lots of technology, which is why it's so productive. Commercial farms exist for profit. They sell their crops to make money. You don't need lots of farmers because they have those multi-million-dollar machines. All of that food is going to go for export. And the whole system, from like designing the seeds to planting the seeds to the machines to the people that ship the food to the people that package the food to the grocery markets that sell the food or to the restaurants that plate the food, all of that's called agribusiness. All right. The whole kind of chain from what they call dirt to dinner, from the beginning of the plant to when it gets into your stomach, is called agribusiness with commercial farming. Subsistence farming, on the other hand, is found in LDCs. It's done with lots of manual labor, right? I think yesterday in the picture we saw like a couple farmers sitting on a hay bale and then like a lot of people working with actual tools. Well, working with tools is manual labor found in subsistence farming. The food farm there is largely consumed by the family. It takes lots of farmers to support those communities, and there's little to no surplus to sell, that the food is consumed on the farm, which makes it really a precarious form of lifestyle. Because if something goes wrong, a flood, a drought, bugs eat your food, or a blight like the potato famine, your families don't have food. All right, I hope that makes sense. So today we're going to zoom in a little bit, take a little bit more of a academic approach to what farming's like in LDCs. And so this map here shows you the types of the leading source of calories for food as it comes to, a calorie being just an energy source or the unit of energy contained in foods. And so the big three, maize is corn. That's like the red countries here. And the green is rice, found in South Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia is the dominant crop there. And then for the rest of the world, that's wheat. And that's basically wheat is ground up into flour, which is turned into bread, which is a large source of calories. If we go down to our next map, we'll see a clear pattern here of sources of protein. So this is not calories, this is specifically protein. And so look at the purple countries. We got Western Europe, Anglo-America, Brazil, Argentina, Oceania, and that source of protein is meat. And the general pattern in the world is that the richer a country is, the more meat they consume. The less developed a country is, the less meat they consume. So if you look at Africa, South Asia, we see lots and lots of cereals, which is basically grains. So people in those countries largely consume their calories through grains, whereas people in the more developed regions of the world consume their food through meat. All right, so we're going to look at 4 different types of farming in less developed countries. They're shifting cultivation, pastoral nomadism, intensive subsistence and plantation farming. I know this map's a little hard to see. When you do your activity today, you'll be able to zoom in on that and kind of make the distinctions for yourself. Shifting cultivation. When I was your age, I learned this as slash and burn. It's basically when farmers cut down forests, clear that space so they can farm for a few years. The thing is about slash and burn is the soil isn't that fertile, so you can't farm there forever. And so then they have to move on, cut down another part of the forest, do it all over again. And then they'll circle back around years later, and that original piece will have regrown and they do it all over again. Now, obviously, this is not a great sustainable way of farming for the world. It's found largely in Indonesia, Central Africa, and Brazil. So unfortunately, it's the rainforests of the world that are getting cut down, the lungs of the earth. So the less trees, we know the more carbon dioxide that exists, the greater climate change is going to happen. And so clearly governments are starting to frown upon this. There's a picture of slash and burn in Africa. Clearly governments are going to frown upon this for a couple of reasons. It clearly destroys the environment. It's a fairly inefficient way to farm because you can only farm on that land that you burn down for a couple of years. It threatens wildlife. It takes away the habitat of the other species, which should share that forest. And maybe like cynically, like the governments would feel that that land is more valuable doing other things. Like they could get more money out of it logging it or ranching it or making industrial farms and not these small farms. And so this is kind of, thankfully, a fading way of agriculture. All right, next style is pastoral nomadism. This is like old school. I think you guys are good at global history. You remember nomads, they move from like place to place. There are very few people that still do this, but it does exist in the world. The place that has the largest percentage of nomads is Mongolia. About a third of that country remain nomads. There are some in northern Scandinavia where they they herd reindeer. And then the Maasai tribesmen of Eastern Africa will also walk from place to place with their domesticated herds. The herds will eat the grass. When the grass is eaten, they move on. All right. So there's a picture from, I believe that's Kazakhstan. That's a country neighboring Mongolia. And this too is kind of a dying form of agriculture because governments would rather that land be used for other things. There might be minerals under that earth, or maybe they would rather develop that earth into a road or a hospital, whatever the case might be. It's an inefficient way of farming. It's an ancient way of farming, and it's very beautiful. I've lived with some nomads in Mongolia for just a few days. Like, it's amazing to watch them do their work, and they work incredibly hard. But governments are saying there's better uses for the land than that. Next, we have intensive subsistence agriculture. So we talked about subsistence agriculture in our throwback. Intensive means like it's labor intensive, which means you need lots of people to do it. And so if you look at this picture, this is like a small rice field here, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 farmers in just that little plot of land. So you need lots of hands doing the work. And it's less productive, obviously, than if you'd have one machine doing the work. So small plots of land, but it's found largely in Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. And it's the most common form of agriculture found in LDCs. Lots of people farming on small lands. Here we have this, I believe, is in Thailand. This is a beautiful, beautiful rice field in Indonesia. I love the terrace rice fields. It's like one of the only ways human beings have made the earth look more beautiful than in its natural state. Last form is plantation farming. And these are large farms that grow one crop. And the most common crops that you'll find are cotton, sugar, coffee, rubber, tea, and tobacco. All right. Oftentimes, these types of farms are owned by a foreign company, and the farmers there are just employees growing one type of crop. The thing about this that I I don't want to say it's good or it's bad. It's both positive and negative. But the thing is, most of the crops grown or the plants grown are sold to MDCs. So you grow them you grow coffee in an LDC on a huge farm, and then you sell it to an MDC. And that's fine because it brings money in. But the problem is, it also takes up land that those people could be farming for themselves. Like the people of Colombia don't need all the coffee that they grow, and the people of Sri Lanka don't need all the tea that they can grow. But there's so much land taken over by it that they can't. They're not growing their own fresh fruits and vegetables like they maybe should be. Right in here in the tropics, I don't know if you can see this map. That's called the coffee belt. Um, Almost all the world's coffee is grown between the tropics, with Brazil being the number one producer in the world of coffee. All right, kiddos, I hope this was informative. Shoot me an email if you need any help. There's our work for the day. I hope you and your families are well. I'll be online. Hit me up if you need me. Take care.